Discover the amazing 5 secrets to make discipline your new passion transform your life today. Jenna sat at her cluttered desk, papers strewn about like discarded dreams. How had it come to this? Hailed as a promising educator, she once burst with passion. Now, her spirit waned beneath the suffocating demands of standardized tests and a relentless flood of paperwork. In a small Midwestern town, her students' creativity lay dormant, stifled by a system focused on scores and compliance. Above all, mounting bills and student loan payments gnawed at her determination. She felt invisible in a community suffocated by challenges, unable to break free from the shadows of expectations. But then came the news, the call that upended her already fragile sense of resolve. Mr. Thompson, her beloved mentor, had suffered a stroke. That single phrase echoed in her mind, fighting for his recovery. The man who had first shown her the beauty of discipline, not as an enemy but as a guiding hand, lay vulnerable. She swore to honor his legacy. She would rekindle her zeal for teaching, reigniting the very essence that made her the teacher she wanted to be. 5 secrets, she whispered to herself, her pulse racing at the thought of rediscovering her passion. But the task felt overwhelming. Each secret was a nugget of hope, yet the weight of skepticism crammed her heart. Doubt hovered in the corners of her mind. What could she really change? How could she confront her fears of rejection from parents who clung tightly to their fears? It gnawed at her, an old nemesis. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Determined, she began transforming her classroom, crafting an art showcase to unleash her students' unvoiced creativity. Every brushstroke and sculpture told a tale untold. But the moment she announced the project at the parent-teacher meeting, tension crackled through the air. Furtive glances exchanged filled the room with palpable unease. Distrust coalesced into an anchor, dragging her ambition deeper into the abyss. How could she make them see the beauty in discipline as a vessel for expression? The fear of rocking the boat clawed at her with every heartbeat. Sleepless nights turned into weeks. Desperation tangled with determination in a complicated knot. Despite facing rejection after rejection from the skeptical parents, Jenna pressed on. Each defeated moment resonated through her, a mantra of resilience that felt more like an anchor than a support. The realization emerged amidst her spirals of despair: discipline wasn't about restrictions, it brought freedom to explore. It transformed the mundane into meaningful experiences, and that truth lit a spark within her. As the day of the showcase approached, the pressure intensified. Could she sway the worrying parents who fought tightly against what they didn't understand? Would the fire within her outshine the chill of impending disappointment? A sudden announcement from the school board shattered her fragile hope. New regulations threatened to pull the rug out from under her dreams. Standing at the precipice of monumental change, Jenna's heartbeat quickened. Could she muster the courage to face the glaring shadow of uncertainty ahead? The questions loomed large, inching her closer to the edge of her fears, a transformative journey faced with insurmountable walls. Every heartbeat echoed with the weight of her mentor's legacy, leaving her grasping for clarity just beyond reach. Jenna stared blankly at the new regulations pinned to the bulletin board. Each line felt like a weight tied around her neck, dragging her deeper into despair. The very essence of her upcoming project, the showcase, seemed to crumble before her eyes, suffocated by policies that prioritized test scores over creativity. It was as if every inspiring thought had been stripped away. But a flicker of resolve ignited within. She would not let the system define her fate. As the sun rose the next day, casting a warm glow on her cluttered desk, she tapped her fingers restlessly against the wooden surface, contemplating her next move. The whispers of her students echoed in her mind, voices that had yearned for expression and exploration. They had dreams that deserved to see the light, and she would be their torchbearer. She needed to harness the strength of her mentor's teachings, not just for her students but for herself. Jenna grabbed a notepad and began jotting down ideas, the ideas that danced before her eyes, a gallery walk instead of a formal showcase, a dynamic space where students could share their work organically with parents and the community. It could serve as an open forum for dialogue, breaking down barriers that policies had erected. Instead of an endpoint defined by regulations, it would be a celebration of creativity, inviting others in rather than pushing them away. But her heart clenched at the thought of confrontation. How would she present this to the skeptical parents? The image of their doubtful faces flooded her mind. Her plans could easily be dismissed, misconstrued. Doubt clawed at her resolve, and she momentarily faltered. But deep down, her passion surged, urging her to challenge the status quo. Days passed in a blur of fervent planning, late-night brainstorming sessions fueled by caffeine and the hope that flickered in her heart. She pieced together presentations, utilizing stories from her students, showcasing their unfinished sketches and aspirational ideas. A profound realization struck her: she was not merely teaching subjects, she was igniting passions and dreams, valuable attributes that transcended standardized metrics. The evening before the meeting, Jenna rehearsed her speech. Lucid articulations of passion danced on her lips, but when she practiced in front of the mirror, her voice wavered. Would the parents recognize the importance of what she proposed? The fear of failure gnawed at her. But she pressed on, reminding herself of Mr. Thompson's words about discipline, the notion of leaning into discomfort to achieve profound growth. As she entered the meeting the following evening, an electrifying anxiety coursed through her. Parents exchanged glances, casting doubt on her intentions. Jenna's heart pounded, and before she could second-guess herself, she stepped forward and began to speak. Words flowed out her vision, her passion, and she witnessed the unmistakable shift in energy around the room. However, not all were convinced. A single voice pierced through, a father whose skepticism ricocheted into thinly veiled hostility. What makes you think creativity and discipline can coexist? Isn't creativity just a fancy word for chaos? A ripple of murmurs spread, and Jenna's chest tightened. She had prepared for resistance but suddenly found herself standing on shaky ground. Her mind raced through tactics, the strategic replies she had practiced in front of the mirror, but none seemed adequate against the mounting challenge of this direct opposition. In that moment, something inside her clicked. The fearlessness she held close morphed from banal words on a paper into the very essence of her being. She could feel her mentor's influence guiding her thoughts, urging her to stand firm. This was more than her project, it was a confrontation with her limitations and a step toward profound change. As confident words began to form, Jenna's thoughts crystallized. She wasn't just here to win parents over, she was here to advocate for every child who felt trapped within the confines of a faceless system. A surge of determination washed over her, fortifying her resolve. How far could she push against the tide? As Jenna began to speak, choosing her words with care and conviction, she recognized that this battle was only just beginning. She could shape not only her students' destinies but also confront the ingrained fears that held her back. Whether she would sway the crowd remained uncertain, but Jenna knew one thing: she was ready to face whatever came next. The meeting felt like a turning point, a moment where she would either break through or encounter an insurmountable wall. And as the first word escaped her lips, she profoundly questioned what it truly meant to be disciplined in a world that often shunned the very passion it depended upon. Would her voice carry the weight needed to challenge tradition? As she faced the crowd's piercing gazes, a new understanding dawned within her: every answer was tethered to the courage to ask the right questions. Jenna drew a deep breath, her focus narrowed on the eyes of the audience, feeling the weight of their collective skepticism press against her. Each heartbeat echoed in her ears, yet amidst the anxiety, an exhilarating sense of purpose emerged. As she stood before the assembled parents, the raw truth of her intent began to crystallize. This was no longer just a proposal, it was a mission to redefine parameters of success within education. "You're right," she began, her words steady despite the internal turmoil. "There is a fear that creativity leads to chaos. But what if we consider that structure and freedom need not be adversaries that clash? This isn't just about allowing students to express themselves, it's about teaching them the discipline to channel their creativity into something meaningful." A few heads nodded. Jenna felt her confidence building with each interaction, her heart sinking with their reactions. It was no longer just a room full of questioning parents, they were potential allies, willing to listen if she could steer the conversation. She leaned into the tension, allowing it to sharpen her focus on the very essence of her argument, the sacred balance of creativity and discipline. This new format, a gallery walk, fosters dialogue, Jenna emphasized passionately. It offers students an authentic platform where they can present their work, their ideas, and their visions of the world. It encourages collaboration, nudging them to think critically and support one another. Isn't this the purpose of education, to prepare them for the complexities of real life? The tension in the room shifted slightly, the murmurs becoming less combative. Jenna saw a flicker of interest on a few faces, inquisitive mothers leaning forward, calculating fathers flipping through their notes, re-evaluating her words. But then, an unexpected voice cut through the tentative progress. It was the same father, his skepticism now palpable, but this time, Jenna responded with intent. Creativity without parameters can indeed breed chaos, he countered. We cannot compromise standards. With a calm breath, Jenna acknowledged the concern, reminding herself to not fall back into doubt. Creativity does not require us to abandon standards, it redefines what those standards can be. It's about cultivating qualities like adaptability, innovative thinking, and resilience, traits that will prepare our children to face challenges we ourselves haven't dreamed of yet. Her words hung in the air, weighted with significance. For the first time in that moment, Jenna could see them for who they truly were, guardians of a future she was trying to shape. They wanted the best for their children, but their visions clung tightly to conventional approaches. In this realization, Jenna felt a surge of empathy, mingling with her desire to inspire. She had once been just like them, uncertain of the unfamiliar path creativity could illuminate. Let me share a story, she said, a quiet confidence guiding her voice. One of my students, Caitlin, struggled to connect with the curriculum. Yet, the moment I invited her to express her understanding through art, she flourished. Not only did her grades improve, but she also discovered a joy in learning. As the story unfolded, Jenna could see faces soften, the tension in the room gradually ebbing away. She was sharing not just a simple narrative, she was uncovering a possibility, a glimpse into what they could create together. But doubt still lingered in the corners of her mind, whispering reminders of the uncertainty that lay ahead. Would this moment, this shared experience, be enough to make a lasting impact? Jenna questioned whether she had the strength to maintain this momentum. The inquisition of parents was merely a precursor to the pushback she would face from colleagues and administration. At the end of the meeting, she felt a mixture of triumph and dread. The applause was warm, encouraging, yet Jenna could not shake the feeling that the real battle had only begun. With every moment she spent in those walls, a darker consideration loomed, threatening to override her determination. She left the room yearning for more than just acceptance. Even if parents rallied behind her now, their support might dissipate under the weight of existing structures with little malleability. Could passion truly thrive in an environment resistant to change? Jenna resolved to keep pushing the envelope and confronting opposition, not just from parents but also from her peers, who were accustomed to following predefined paths. Her own path had just begun to diverge into uncharted territory, and as thrilling as that journey was, she could no longer ignore the perils ahead. Tomorrow brings another challenge, she whispered to herself. With that, a sense of urgency rippled within her, one that ignited a fire not merely to exist as an educator, but to transform entirely. As the night enveloped her, Jenna pondered the reality ahead, but the question remained potent: could she inspire a genuine metamorphosis before the system crushed the very dreams she had sought to elevate? The morning sun found its way through Jenna's kitchen window, casting a warm glow on the remnants of her late-night contemplation. Her resolve was firm, yet the remnants of doubt clouded her thoughts. She brewed her coffee, the aroma enveloping her like a comforting blanket, but inside she wrestled with a burgeoning sense of urgency. Each sip reminded her of the stakes at hand. Today, she would meet with her fellow educators. It was a chance to forward her vision, to convert the tides of skepticism into waves of support that could carry her initiative to fruition. Jenna understood that while parents were the guardians of their children's futures, it was her peers who held the keys to implementing change within the school's culture. Yet the fear of rejection hung heavily like a storm cloud. Arriving at the school, she was greeted with muted chit-chat as teachers gathered for the meeting. Their palpable weariness echoed her own long days filled with testing protocols and standardized curriculum. Jenna felt it would be easy for her to slip into the background, to allow their established norms to drown out her voice. But as she took her seat, she steadied herself. What she lacked in institutional power, she made up for in passion. "Good morning, everyone," she began, her voice breaking through the soft hum of casual discussions. "I appreciate you all taking the time to talk about an important aspect of our students' education." She scanned the room, trying to catch the eyes of her colleagues, but several looked down, fidgeting with their notebooks. "Today, I want to highlight how we can synthesize creativity and discipline in our classrooms. Imagine a space where students are encouraged to express their understanding artistically while still meeting rigorous academic standards. A balance that prepares them for the unpredictable world beyond these walls." Jenna's heart raced as she watched their expressions shift. A few faces revealed mild curiosity, while others remained skeptical. It was the latter that worried her the most. They were the ones entrenched in tradition, skeptical of any change that disrupted the status quo. A seasoned teacher from across the room, Craig, leaned forward and interjected, "We test these students on their skills in rigid formats." "Are you proposing we throw that out?" "No, not at all," she replied, taking a breath to steady herself. "What if we refined our methods, creating projects that included assessments through art, writing, or video presentations? This wouldn't replace our standards but enhance them, broadening the criteria by which we gauge a student's ability to think critically and creatively." An uncomfortable silence followed. Jenna felt the weight of their collective uncertainty. "I get your enthusiasm, Jenna, but creativity is subjective," Craig replied, arms crossed tightly. "How do we assess that?" It was a fair concern, but Jenna hadn't backed down from a challenge yet. Creativity can be assessed through structured rubrics. We can define clear expectations, just as we do with traditional assessments. Let's frame it as an opportunity for students to explore complex ideas through multiple lenses. The meeting room buzzed with murmurs, both supportive and critical. Deep inside, Jenna felt a flicker of hope igniting. If she could just one by one address their fears and guide them to see the potential, they might shift their perspectives. But then came a critical moment. A flashback of her own doubts almost overwhelmed her. What if she was wasting her energy? What if they all remained entrenched in their beliefs? In that instant, the looming emotional storm threatened to consume her resolve. But she had made a commitment to herself the night before. She couldn't allow herself to retreat now. "Let us not forget," she continued, leaning forward to emphasize her point, "that every great innovator faced resistance. The very definition of progress means challenging the norms. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it also promises growth in us as educators and in our students." Jenna's words hung in the air, shifting the atmosphere. A few nods accompanied a soft chorus of agreement, yet she couldn't ignore the shadows of doubt still hovering in the room. The battle was far from over. As the meeting wrapped up, Jenna felt the weight of their incredulity, but it was met with a sliver of hope. She hadn't completely shifted the narrative yet, but the fight was in motion. That night, Jenna stared at her reflection in the mirror, grappling with the lingering doubts. She was committed to building this new paradigm, but what lay ahead would require more than just her voice. It would demand the ability to confront not just skepticism, but an entire system resistant to change. Could she rally the support she needed before the current of doubt swept her away? The answer remained troublingly elusive, echoing ominously as she drifted off to sleep. As dawn broke once again, Jenna awoke to a new day with a renewed sense of purpose. The unease from the evening prior had settled into a soft, persistent determination. She understood that her journey would require not just her existing resolve but a strategic re-evaluation of how she could engage her colleagues. The meeting hadn't been a failure, it had merely been the first skirmish in a much larger battle. Over her morning coffee, Jenna began to sketch out her next steps. It was clear to her that she needed to open dialogues rather than force lectures. She couldn't simply expect her colleagues to embrace her ideas. Instead, she would need to invite them to envision their own transformations. Could she turn skepticism into collaboration? With every sip, she envisioned a series of small, informal workshops. She could present her ideas in low-pressure environments, allowing teachers to explore their hesitations without feeling cornered. They could engage with creativity through pilot projects, testing her proposals in their classrooms on a trial basis. If they could see success firsthand, they might begin to shift their outlooks. Armed with the clarity of her new plan, Jenna reached out to a handful of teachers she believed might be open to experimentation. She crafted a brief email outlining her vision of creativity interwoven with academic discipline while inviting them for coffee later that week to discuss potential collaborations. The response was mixed. Some were intrigued, while others remained unconvinced, dismissing her ideas as impractical. Jenna felt that sting acutely but resolved to focus on the positive responses. If she could gather a small coalition, it could serve as a catalyst. As the week progressed, Jenna devoted her evenings to creating a framework for her proposed small-scale initiatives. She spent hours refining her rubrics, ensuring they were clear and actionable. However, she grappled internally: was this enough? Could she genuinely provide a meaningful alternative to the drudgery of standardized testing? She recalled her students bright, capable individuals who often shone when allowed to make projects that showcased their interests. They thrived in environments where exploration was encouraged but faltered under the weight of rigid assessment formats. If she could inspire just one of her colleagues with this same philosophy, it would be a significant step forward. Then came the day of the first coffee meeting. Jenna had an ulterior motive: she wanted the teachers to feel that they, too, could be champions of creativity. She felt a surge of anxiety bubble beneath the surface as they settled into their seats. Despite the numbers being smaller than expected, each face around the table brought a flicker of hope. "How do you envision integrating creativity into our already packed curriculum?" Sarah, a sympathetic yet cautious math teacher, inquired. Taking a breath, Jenna leaned in. "What if we created cross-disciplinary projects? For instance, integrating math with art to explore geometric concepts in sculpture. It could rejuvenate engagement and make the material relevant for students." The conversation flowed, ideas colliding and coalescing, and for the first time, Jenna felt a spark of synergy among them. To witness her peers beginning to entertain change filled her with exhilaration. Yet, beneath this enthusiasm lurked a ripple of anxiety. Would this small breakthrough inspire lasting change? Would the more resistant voices emerge from the shadows, ready to shoot down their efforts? The following day, Jenna received word that her proposal would be brought to the principal and discussed during an upcoming faculty meeting. Fingers shaking slightly with a mix of dread and anticipation, Jenna prepared her arguments, convinced that the momentum was building, but she was aware that this was merely the beginning of an ongoing conflict. While the layers of tension began to peel back and reveal potential avenues for collaboration, she sensed a greater confrontation on the horizon. The principal was known to favor tradition, and this refusal to diverge from established standards would present an immense hurdle. As she sat down to draft her presentation, Jenna couldn't shake the feeling that the time had come to face the ultimate challenge: defending her vision in the face of an entrenched system. Would her passion resonate beyond the meeting room or crumble before institutional skepticism? The outcome was uncertain, its weight pressing heavily on her mind as she pursued clarity in her arguments. Jenna's heart pounded. Each tick of the clock seemed to count down to a critical moment. And just how far she was willing to go to make her dream a reality loomed ahead, a question demanding her attention. As the day of the faculty meeting approached, Jenna increased her focus on preparation. The hours flew by in a blur of notes, slides, and rehearsals in front of a mirror. Each time she spoke the words aloud, she felt a mixture of determination and fear. Would her ideas hold water when scrutinized by someone who had dedicated their career to upholding the status quo? In the solitude of her office, the walls adorned with student art splashes, Jenna took a moment to reflect. What had started as a whisper of doubt had morphed into a chorus of questions. Where had this fear originated? Was it truly about the ideas she presented, or was it deeper: a fear of being dismissed, of failing to fit into a framework that had always seemed to dismiss the very creative spark she sought to ignite? With a deep breath, she turned her attention to the question that would anchor her argument. Why did creativity matter in assessment? Jenna began to jot down specific examples of students struggling with conventional testing methods, their innovative projects tucked away as mere doodles of potential that teachers had overlooked. Each stroke of her pen felt like a rallying call. The day finally arrived. Walking through the school's corridors, the atmosphere buzzed with the scent of fresh curricular debates and unspoken apprehensions. Jenna felt a tremor beneath her composed exterior, an urge to retreat to her safe cocoon of solitude. But steeling herself against that urge, she pressed on, visualizing how her efforts could reshape the educational landscape for her students. As the meeting commenced, Jenna sat quietly, watching the familiar faces shuffle through their notes, some indifferent, others deeply focused. When the moment came for her to speak, she stood, adjusting her blouse as she stepped forward to present her proposal. Her palms were clammy, but she felt a flicker of empowerment as she looked toward her supportive peers.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Today I would like to talk about integrating creativity into our curriculum. Her words flowed, infused with passion and authenticity. With each slide, she articulated not only her ideas but the very heart of her convictions, that education should evoke curiosity and foster engagement rather than stifle it with rigidity. She presented her cross-disciplinary projects, linking creativity to real-world applications. The room was silent, save for the sound of her voice cascading through data and examples. Jenna felt a tide of excitement begin to wash over her, bolstered by glimpses of nodding heads. However, as she concluded, she felt the weight of skepticism drift through the air like a cold current.
Mr. Whitmore, the principal, cleared his throat, a look of ambivalence on his face.
While I commend your enthusiasm, Jenna, our current metrics don't align with such experimental approaches. Our priority must remain steadfast, achieving measurable results for standardized testing. Jenna's heart sank momentarily at his resistance, but she quickly pivoted.
With respect, Mr. Whitmore, the students who struggle with those tests are the very ones who can thrive under a reimagined approach. We must consider the long-term impact of creativity on problem-solving and innovation.
She felt her confidence surge, but a flicker of doubt flickered behind her resolve.
Would this be enough to convince someone whose role depended on adhering strictly to established measurements? The atmosphere thickened as discussions ensued, voices blending into a cacophony of perspectives.
Jenna listened attentively, absorbing feedback, both critical and constructive. Each comment was a chance to gauge where resistance lay and how to address it.
Could she articulate not just the need for creativity but its potential to enhance achievement in more traditional measures?
As the meeting wound down, she caught a glimpse of Sarah, the math teacher from their coffee discussion. Her eyes sparkled with enthusiasm, reflecting the very hope Jenna had tried to cultivate. Jenna felt a rush. There was some potential support lurking amidst the
critique.
But as she stepped from the meeting room, she understood the fight was far from over. This battle was not just about convincing individuals but shifting a culture resistant to change. The path ahead twisted with uncertainty, but Jenna was unlike before, no longer just a teacher but a catalyst ready to carve out a new future. With each step back to her classroom, Jenna pondered her next move. She knew that gaining momentum could help her transform their skepticism into curiosity. She needed to bring everybody on board, or the tide would inevitably fracture.
Would she take the risk of openly challenging the principal's authority, rallying the supportive voices to create a unified front for change? The thought loomed ahead, a crossroads demanding her decision.
Jenna sat at her desk, staring at the half-finished draft of her action plan. The faint sound of students chatting outside her door was a reminder of the vibrant energy she sought to channel into the faculty's discussions. Despite the waves of uncertainty crashing over her from the meeting, a resolute determination bubbled beneath. She envisioned a classroom where creativity wasn't just encouraged, it was the foundation of learning.
But how could she engage her colleagues, those entrenched in the culture of conventionality, without risking her credibility? Was it time to arrange an informal gathering, perhaps a lunch and learn session? Or should she approach Sarah first, seeking her insights and rallying her potential support?
Each option tugged at her mind, further straining her already elevated stress levels. As she pushed her chair back and paced the room, she felt the urge to transform her frustrations into something concrete.
She knew fear wouldn't solve anything, but what could?
Without overthinking it, Jenna grabbed a stack of blank paper and began doodling. Sketching ideas for her plans, she visualized a project that could serve as a pilot initiative, one that would underscore the positive correlations between creativity and academic achievement.
The goal was clear: to create a tangible demonstration that would showcase the strengths of her proposal without directly challenging the administration's stance.
Jenna could see the essence of the idea taking shape,
a local art showcase where students' innovative projects would be highlighted alongside standard curriculum topics. They could invite parents, offering insights into how the school was nurturing their children's creativity. Maybe even get local businesses involved. This was not only a way to garner support but also a chance to build community connections. The thought of blending education with real-world application sent a jolt of excitement through her. She had the basis of something compelling. Jenna could use this event to unveil the potential benefits of a more creative curriculum. But would Mr. Whitmore allow the plan if it threatened the status quo? The gnawing doubt crept back, in one that reminded her of the risk she'd face in presenting an idea that could inadvertently be perceived as undermining his authority. Yet, a voice echoed in her mind, urging her forward. What he didn't know about himself was that he needed perspective as much as the curriculum did. It was time to put herself on the line. Feeling emboldened, she reached for her phone, ready to message Sarah, but hesitated. Would Sarah's support ignite others' curiosity, or would they merely dismiss it as another fleeting idea from an idealist? With a deep breath, Jenna pressed send. The moment clutching her phone, she felt both liberated and anxious. Her proposal would breathe life into the stagnant air of the faculty meeting, but could she cultivate enough enthusiasm among her peers to breach the administrative walls? Not waiting for a reply, she took the rest of the day to refine her plan, amidst the cascading thoughts of what might come next. Progress had its own rhythm, and she needed to harness it. A new proposal would require her to maintain the balance between ambition and caution, and that would mean navigating a labyrinth of opinions, fears, and potential alliances. As the final bell rang, Jenna watched students filter out of the classrooms, their laughter bright against the muted conversations of teachers. She longed for that unfiltered creativity to infiltrate the serious world of education. What if she sought insights from the students themselves? Their perspective might provide avenues she hadn't considered and also bolster her credibility when presenting to the faculty again. With students being given their voices, perhaps the campaign for creativity could transcend adult apprehension. The following morning, she gathered a group of her most spirited students, eager to glean their thoughts on what creativity meant to them. With each story shared, like seeds in fertile soil, they began to take root in her mind. Each anecdote revealed deep wells of potential, yet the collective weight of what could be cultivated grew heavy. Jenna needed to act quickly. Anticipation thrummed in the room as she mulled how to intertwine the voices of these students with her proposal, generating a stronger argument that could not be dismissed. But the central question loomed: in cultivating their ideas, how would she counter the impending pushback from administration and make a case that couldn't be overlooked? The walls were closing in as she rallied her thoughts, knowing that time was of the essence. The moment had come to face not only her peers but the very systems that restrained them all. Jenna paced her living room, the rhythmic sound of her footsteps a counterpoint to the whirlwind of thoughts swirling in her mind. The sketches and notes she had taken during her session with the students lay scattered across the coffee table, remnants of ideas that still pulsed with the energy of their youthful enthusiasm. But how could she translate that vitality into something that would resonate with her colleagues? The blend of excitement and dread brewed within her, drawing her into a deeper reflection. She stopped at the window, looking out as daylight faded and the golden hour cast a warm glow over the neighborhood. In that moment of quiet, Jenna contemplated her own trajectory. Was she ready to step into a role that challenged her to confront not only the institutional boundaries but her own personal limits? Each student's story echoed in her mind. They had taken risks, dared to express themselves, and struggled against the constraints that left them feeling unheard. If they could be bold enough to share their truth, surely she could muster the courage to voice her convictions. Determined to prepare her upcoming presentation in a way that would not only illuminate her proposal but also build her confidence, she gathered the materials and relocated to her tiny desk a few steps away. She needed a storyboard, visual reminders of her students' ideas and how they could weave into her action plan. The past few days had shown her that collaboration wasn't just a method, it was essential. But how could she ensure that those voices remained central to the discussion? As she maneuvered through various iterations, Jenna began to see how she could integrate students' anecdotes into her pitch. Each narrative had a purpose, a thread that connected to her overarching message about creativity's role in learning. Perhaps she could utilize audio or visual testimonials, transforming her abstract proposal into a compelling presentation filled with authentic voices. Her fingers danced across the keyboard, typing up outlines that not only showcased her vision but also honored the contributions of her students. But the tension of potential resistance loomed like a thundercloud. Would Mr. Whitmore find this approach too radical? She recalled the manner in which he brushed aside discussions of creativity in past meetings. Would her colleagues view her efforts as a threat or a fresh breeze? Jenna felt a pang of doubt. What if her bravery only fueled further criticism? These thoughts, unsettling yet familiar, pressed on her psyche as she crafted the narrative she would share. The choice was clear: she needed to address the realities of education in her school, especially the necessity of adapting to an evolving world. But how aggressively should she make her case? This was an ethical dilemma, a battleground where her ideals clashed against the conventional beliefs long held by her peers. The fear of being labeled an outlier gnawed at her. Steeling herself, she noted her anxieties, affirming that acknowledging these fears was the first step towards overcoming them. As the hours crept on, Jenna finally concluded her draft, feeling both exhausted and exhilarated. The mere act of articulating her thoughts in a manner driven by necessity, rather than mere ambition, had fired a spark within her. But the flip side of that conviction was equally daunting. If she were going to challenge the status quo, she would need to prepare for the fallout. The night wore on, the only sound her breathing and the tapping of keys. Even as fatigue settled in, she felt an odd thrill coursing through her veins. This was not just about an event, it was about breaking through the walls that shrouded creativity and innovation in her school. Moments of clarity emerged in the dark, crystallizing with urgency as what could follow became evident. But the question remained: could her proposal resonate through the fears of her colleagues as it had through the hearts of her students? Setting the laptop aside, Jenna took a deep breath, bracing for the confrontation that awaited her at the faculty meeting. And as those thoughts lingered on the tip of her mind, a new urgency bubbled forth within her. She realized that her action plan wasn't just about advocating for creative expression, it was a call to redefine educational success itself. Determined, she steeled her resolve, fully aware that this moment could redefine her own role in the educational landscape. The dawn of the meeting was just hours away, and Jenna couldn't shake the sensation that the moment of truth was about to unfold, one that would usher change not only for her students but for herself. What would happen when she crossed that threshold? The morning sun seeped through the blinds, casting slanted rays across Jenna's workspace, and it enveloped her in a warm but intimidating glow. The faculty meeting was only an hour away, and the weight of the impending discussion pressed heavily on her chest. She stood before her storyboard, a vibrant collage of ideas that teetered on the brink of boldness and desperation. Should she remove the most radical elements, or would diluting her message compromise her integrity? As she gazed at her careful assemblage, doubt clawed at her confidence. The narratives of her students pulsed with a life of their own, yet was it prudent to lead with them? What if Mr. Whitmore and the others dismissed these personal stories? Could she risk her reputation on the hope that her colleagues would resonate with such vulnerability? Jenna made a conscious effort to silence her doubts. Holding onto her sketches, she steadied her breath, endeavoring to capture the essence of what had animated her during countless nights of work. This wasn't merely about a proposal, it was about weaving the fabric of learning with threads of authentic experiences. Her gut told her she was onto something profound. The time slipped away, and Jenna loaded her materials into a folder, aware that she still had to navigate the logistics of presenting her ideas. Amplifying her message would mean she needed to command respect while simultaneously being vulnerable, a juxtaposition that made her heart race. How would she balance earnest passion and the urgent necessity to advocate for change amidst potentially skeptical ears? Arriving at the school, Jenna's anticipation mingled with trepidation. The bustling corridor felt abuzz with life, the chatter of teachers and admin serving as a stark contrast to the stirring silence of her early morning reflections. She caught snippets of conversations, occasionally overhearing phrases about curriculum guidelines and test scores, each one a reminder of the entrenched mindset that resisted evolution. Jenna shivered, the reality of her situation piercing through her determination. When she entered the faculty lounge, the atmosphere was thick with a blend of excitement and skepticism. Colleagues huddled in small groups, sharing notes and debating the agenda. Jenna could sense the anticipation simmering beneath the surface, a collective readiness mixed with the standard apprehension of any change proposal.
Mr. Whitmore stood at the front of the room, humor and authority cutting through the chatter as he welcomed everyone.
Her heart raced, caught between admiration for the authority he wielded and fear of his potential disapproval.
She noticed the papers in front of him, the same ones she had been drafting until the late hours of the night.
Her fears seemed to echo louder in her mind now. Would practical constraints stifle the vision she held so dear?
As he began to introduce the day's topics, Jenna recalled the faces of her students sharing their stories.
Their trust breathed life into her mission. With each passing moment, she felt a surge of determination.
If their voices echoed through the walls of her heart, then they deserved to be heard. By the time it was her turn to present, adrenaline coursed through her veins like fire. She stood, rehearsing phrases in her mind while visualizing the tapestry she had woven with her sketches. This was her moment, not just to advocate for change, but to confront her professional fears head-on, an opportunity to redefine what it meant to teach in an era that demanded so much more. But as she glanced at her colleagues, she could see the ambiguity, curiosity mixed with unrest.
Could she truly snatch the narrative from the clutches of convention?
As the opening notes of her presentation fell from her lips, Jenna felt as if she were standing on the edge of a precipice, ready to leap. She took a deep breath, steadied her resolve, and dove into the sea of uncertainty, ready to face whatever awaited her in that room.
What new barriers would she encounter, and could she mold them into pathways for change?
Jenna stepped into her classroom the next morning with a renewed energy coursing through her veins. The events of the faculty meeting had drawn out not just resistance, but also unexpected allies. She remembered the way a handful of her colleagues had nodded in agreement as she spoke. The lingering doubts that had plagued her for weeks began to dissipate, replaced by the solid confidence that her ideas were worthy of pursuit. They had called for change before, now, she felt the wind at her back. With each passing day, Jenna's vision transitioned from aspiration to reality. The art showcase she had proposed transformed into a project that other teachers rallied behind. Craig, the initially skeptical math teacher, surprised her by suggesting a partnership to create geometric art that would showcase both their subjects. The collaboration blossomed into an inspirational movement, a testament to creativity manifesting through disciplined learning.
Jenna's classroom, once a clutter of doubt, now echoed with laughter and creativity.
Students flourished in an environment where they were encouraged to express themselves while learning core curriculum standards. The gallery walk showcased their projects and integrated feedback from the students themselves, allowing them to assess and refine their peers' artistic expressions. What's more, parents began to notice the shift. More showed up, curious to see their children's newfound passions illuminate the school.
As the event day approached, Jenna's heart raced with anticipation.
It was not just another school event, it represented the culmination of her relentless pursuit of redefining success within education. She glanced around her classroom, taking in the vibrant artwork decorating the walls. Each piece was not only a reflection of each student's individuality but also a tribute to her resilience against the status quo. On the evening of the event, Jenna stood poised at the entrance, greeting parents with the same warmth she had infused into each lesson.
Art adorned every corner, narrating the tales of her students' struggles and victories.
The energy was palpable, an electric hum of connection and possibility. The gallery walk began, parents engaged heartily with their children's artwork, asking questions and expressing admiration. In that moment, Jenna realized that she had achieved more than reformed a mere project. She had cultivated a community appreciating education through a new lens. Every appreciative word exchanged reinforced her dedication and transformed her self-doubt into self-assurance.
As the night wore on, Jenna spotted Mr. Whitmore entering the showcase.
Apprehension swelled in her chest, but it was swiftly eclipsed by growing confidence. He was greeted by the vibrant displays and the emerging dialogues among parents who once feared change. Jenna saw a flicker of comprehension cross his face as he observed students not just meeting, but exceeding expectations in ways traditional assessments had never captured. At the end of the event, Jenna stood near the exit, exhausted but fulfilled. Parents applauded her vision, single voices ringing through her ears in affirmation. As she collected her thoughts, Mr. Whitmore approached.
"Jenna," he began, "I must admit, I underestimated the depth of your proposal.
You've managed to create a space that nurtures both creativity and academic rigor. I see now how we can tentatively redefine what it means to educate effectively. A swell of pride surged through her. No longer an insecure educator battling a resistance system, Jenna felt recognized and competent.
Thank you, Mr. Whitmore.
This has only been possible because of the support of my colleagues and the creativity of my students. Walking home that night beneath a canopy of stars, Jenna reflected on her journey. She had not just transformed her classroom, she had conquered personal fear. The spark of discipline she had learned from Mr. Thompson had ignited flames of courage and innovation within her. She had emerged from obscurity, a passionate advocate for education, unafraid of engaging in conversations that once seemed insurmountable. This was her moment of convergence. Embracing both discipline and creativity felt not only achievable but vital for embracing a brighter, more expressive future in education.
Now, let us turn our attention to you, dear viewer. You need to subscribe now to our channel for more inspiring transformations. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to keep this content alive. Your attention fuels our mission. We want to hear from you. Comment below with your thoughts and theories on Jenna's journey. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who are on their own paths of change that need inspiration. Thank you for being a part of this empowering community.